What's going on, everybody? Welcome to LakerCentral. It's the pregame show with me and Vinay. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos or pre or post game content. The Lakers are coming at you a little bit later this afternoon against the Rockets at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So we're going to chat a little bit about what to expect in that matchup. Vinay, it looks like the sun is shining there on the West Coast, man. How are things in Los Angeles?
It is beautiful weather in Los Angeles. It's a little chilly, but we know that that's not a real chilly
Like, yeah,
in terms of what goes on in the
what
U.
is chilly? What is chilly right now for you guys?
Chill, chilly's like, I don't know, low 60s, I guess. I mean, it gets cold at night, but I was talking to my brother-in-law yesterday, and they were saying that in North Georgia it is 20 degrees or something
Yikes.
like that at night. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty ridiculous. So it's not really chilly here. It's California chilly. I think that's
Right.
I should start prefacing it that way. And so, as you can see, as my daughter's walking by me there, it's California chilly. But the sun is shining. As you can see, I had to close my windows in the back because it was going to blast just too bright. And I'm looking forward to today's game. Lakers 7-3 through 10 games. Rockets is a team that we expect to be, like a playoff team. I don't, depending on how long James Harden's there or what the return is on him and that sort of thing. So I'm curious to see how they do in these next 10 games. And, they present a modern offense. Steven Silas is a really great coach. I like him a lot. He came from Dallas, so he was coaching underneath Rick Carlisle. The offense that they try to run with Houston is very similar to the style of offense that they try to run in Dallas. And the number one threat that can give the Lakers problems early on in the game and throughout the game is going to be Christian Wood, the guy who's playing their starting center spot. And so I'm very curious to see how the Lakers deal with it because, we talked about it. We don't know how many adjustments they're really going to be making, but he's a floor spacing five in the truest sense. He's a skill similar to Anthony Davis, and so I'm going to be curious to see how the Lakers deal with it. And then, I think there's three guys that are currently on the injury report: LeBron, KCP, and Anthony Davis. They're all. Yeah, do we get a healthy team? Does Anthony Davis come back tonight? Does KCP finally make it back from his ankle issue? It'll be very curious to see what ends up happening there.
I agree, man. So let's just jump off talking about the Rockets, right? So, and guys, I see your comments in the chats. I'm gonna bring in a bunch of your comments as soon as we start getting a little bit deeper into the conversation. But first and foremost, man, I mean, the Rockets for what, like the better part of half a decade have been, Western Conference contenders, and they were 27 missed three-pointers away from going to the finals a couple of seasons ago. So during the whole Golden State era, they were, basically Golden State's number one challenger on the West Coast. And now you get here, right? And there's no Chris Paul, there's no Russell Westbrook. James Harden apparently wants out of Houston, even though Houston has acquiesced to every single one of his requests over the last 5 years or so, but he wants out. Daryl Morey is gone. Mike D'Antoni is gone. And you look at the Rockets team now, and you've got John Wall, who we hadn't seen play in like 2 years. He's there. DeMarcus Cousins, same thing. He had been in 2 serious injuries. We hadn't seen him play in a long time. They have Steven Silas, who's out of Dallas. He's there now running the show. It's a very, very different Rockets team. And what's happened is those guys that went from being the upper echelon of the West and probably thinking, hey, once Golden State falls off, we're going to be right there, to right now they're 12th in the West. They lost to us in the second round last season. And now they look at the Western Conference, and Golden State is gone, but the Lakers are the Lakers again. The Clippers are good. Denver is good, right? Like, the Rockets almost got bypassed this last season. Like, they went from being one of the best teams in the league to they're a bottom feeder, man. And they're on the verge of, more than likely, I think you and I both believe James Harden will be moved at some point, whether it's during the season or off season. You can't. This isn't going to go on but so long, right? So, let me jump right to one of the something that was on my mind, and Michelle sent this in to us, so we're going to go with her question first. Does AD take it personally that Christian Wood said he had this date circled. Michelle, that is something I'm looking forward to seeing. One, if AD plays, but even if he plays,
Yeah.
if he's healthy, because he's clearly dealing with some nagging injuries right now. But I really do hope that he comes out fired up and he just sends a message like, hey, Christian, you're having a great start to the season. I'm happy for you, but I'm still by far the best big man in the NBA. Like, that's what I hope I see. What do you think, Vinay?
Yeah, I don't know how seriously the Lakers will take that sort of matchup specifically if AD plays. But I think Christian Wood is going to because of his skill set and he's a
Yep.
good player. I think he is going to bring to light a lot of the Lakers' issues with as it relates to their five out, how they deal with that 5 out spacing sort of
Mm-hmm.
defense and stuff like that, and how they deal with these pick and pop kind of guys, because that's a genuine problem that this team is having issues with. Just as a team, like every spacing big that they've had to play against, they've had problems with, and so that's something that the Lakers really need to address. So if Anthony Davis does play, I want to see if Vogel's going to put Gasol on Christian Wood, because I don't think Gasol is going to be a very good matchup for him, because Christian Wood can also pump fake and put the ball on the floor and stuff like that. So does Frank Vogel say, all right, let me just try something a little bit different and maybe not start Gasol? Maybe he starts Montrez or maybe he starts
Mm-hmm.
Markieff if AD plays or AD doesn't play, depending on what it is. That's very similar to the style of lineups, like, when against Houston. We saw
Yep.
the Lakers be very successful when they went with Markieff and AD. And so, but that was a playoff thing, So I don't know what the Lakers are planning to do in regards to that. The other thing the Lakers have to worry about also is, the speed of John Wall. Even though he's coming off an Achilles tear and he's like a 2-year hiatus,
Yep.
he's still very fast, and he can get to the rim. So the Lakers are going to have to be prepared for like that inside outside attack. Obviously, James Harden still can get to the rim at will, basically, even though he's in a shooting slump, and you know it's the Lakers. So somebody tonight is going to like have like some sort of like coming out party game or something like that. So who's that going to be? Is it going to be Daniel House, or is it going to be I don't think Eric Gordon's playing, but or is it going to be some guy, Jay Sean Tate or something like that,
Yep.
whoever's like randomly on that team. So we gotta that's just the way that like I'm kind of looking at it. We gotta get that all kind of squared up and figured out. But the Lakers should be prepared for it, because it seems as though many players are looking at the Lakers, especially being the champions, and saying, "Hey, this is my real opportunity to really make a
Right.
name for myself," because everybody's watching the Laker games.
I mean, we've seen it all season. I mean, frankly, we've probably seen it our entire lives, and it was happening before you and I we even thought of, right? Like, you play the Lakers, you want to show out. Most players don't call out the Lakers though. Like they some obscure
Yeah,
player like 10th on the bench shows up and goes 8 for 9 from three and has like 40 points or something. But Christian Wood is absolutely called out the Lakers, and I don't think he specifically mentioned Anthony Davis, but when you're
no,
6'10" and you're big and you circle the Lakers, everybody knows that means that you're looking at Anthony Davis, right? So I want to see AD come out fired up, man. Like I love AD. I think that people saying he's not playing hard, or people already concerned. Relax, guys. Like I tweeted this earlier. Lakers started off last season 8-2. They're 7-3 this season. They're fine. They're clearly coasting. They have to get better, obviously, but I do want to see AD kind of get up to the challenge, because if he does play today, injured or not, hurt or not, and he plays and he's not aggressive, or he doesn't play a good game, and Christian Wood he's averaging 20 and 10 I think on the season, something like that. If Christian Wood plays really well, tomorrow morning, all the national media shows are going to lead with, what's wrong with Anthony Davis? Is he worth the 5 years, 190? We know how this goes. So
yeah,
this is the team that the Lakers should beat if they're focused. I am curious to see how Schroeder deals with John Wall. I mean, Wall,
mm-hmm.
he's averaging 20. I mean, Wall's look really good, man. Like, to have not played basketball in a couple years, high level basketball in a couple years, he's come out and looked really good. I don't really know how Houston fans feel, post John Wall and Russell Westbrook trade now, if they've warmed up to it,
Yeah.
or whatever. But, and not to mention, DeMarcus Cousins is on that team, and now so he's also a stretch big. I haven't watched a lot of Houston this year, admittedly, so I don't know how they use
Yeah.
him and Wood together, or if they use them separately. But I am curious to see Wood does stretch the defense a bit, but he's only shooting 25% for three. So
Yeah.
is it a thing where he gets hot, kind of like LaMarcus Aldridge did the other day, and then you've got to worry about that, or does he just hit 1 3 and then the Lakers maybe overplay him a little bit? But I'm curious to see what this game looks like.
Yeah, it's we don't really know who's going to be the guy that steps up and stuff like that for this team. But the other way to also see it is these guys have sort of had an up and down season. Obviously, they've dealt with some COVID issues at the very early part of the season. The Lakers may be the best sort of. I mean, they're a contender test, right? Like everybody knows that that the Lakers are just kind of coasting to some degree and stuff like that, and we know that LeBron's made an excellent MVP case. So
Yep.
I think a lot of teams, even when they aren't having a great season, they look at the Lakers and say, well, if we can beat these guys, it's only like there's clearly something that we're good at that we can do, even if it's only a sample size of one game. So I would say I've watched parts of Houston's games. The one game that I think I watched more intensively, it was actually mainly because I was watching Tyrese Halliburton in Sacramento, was when Houston played Sacramento. And so their offense is pretty straightforward in the sense that I also watched the Houston Portland game. I think it was the debut game for Hardened or whatever. And so Houston still has a bunch of guys that are high effort guys. Tucker, Macklemore, who else am I thinking of? Like even Wood, Tate, the guy that they're running in that spot. Like they have a lot of high effort guys. So the Lakers are probably not going to get away with any lackadaisical effort when it comes to like 50-50 balls and rebounding and all that sort of stuff. They still play a modern offense, which means that if they're taking a lot of threes, whether they go in or not, it's going to be long rebounds, which means our guards have to chase that stuff down. Guys like Schroeder, depending on who starts tonight, if it's Wes, if KCP comes back, if they play, the effort is going to have to be there, right? So it's very possible that if the Lakers come out with very lazy effort, they could be down. Like this could be a game where they get blown out. Like we've been talking about, like
good point.
These guys are really towing the line of not getting blown out, and they're relying on actually LeBron's excellence. Like LeBron has been so good sometimes against some of these bench lineups that he's basically keeping the Lakers in games. But like this will be a game for us to watch and see. Like, are they matching the energy? Is the effort there? Are they taking it serious? And it is a back-to-back, right? So they're going to play, or not back-to-back. Sorry, it's playing the Rockets twice in a row. Right. So it's like, how seriously are they going to take this game? That sort of thing. But it'll be interesting to see. I really do wonder if Anthony Davis is going to play. If he does play, I want to see how he matches up against a guy like Christian Wood. The things that I'm going to be looking for probably this game is to see what happens when if Houston tries to go with like a speed lineup. Do the Lakers match up? Do they play Horton Tucker and Caruso and go a little bit more smaller than they typically, and Schroeder at the same time, and try to go a little bit smaller than they normally would? Do they use Montrez and allow him to try and bully guys and stuff like that, going to the rim and whatnot? Like that kind of stuff is the stuff I want to see happen, because I think if the Lakers want to send a message to people, these are the kind of games that they have to send a message. Yep. Like beating the Grizzlies or beating the Spurs, people are just the national audience is just gonna look and say, oh well, yeah, you know what, they're not really that good. But Houston last season was a team that people are saying, if the Lakers run into this team, based on the way analytics works and the way that the spreadsheet folks and the analytics blog boys, as people like to call them, that by matchup they should lose that matchup. Because the Lakers don't have the shooting to match up with that team, and they take, they are an analytically efficient offense, and we saw that wasn't the case. We saw that the Lakers were able to scheme this team completely out of the game, to the point where we basically gentlemen swept them. And James Harden's still an uber scorer, but at the same time, it's a very centralized offense. It relies on one guy to do a lot of stuff, and it's a little bit different now because Steven Silas has John Wall, and he lets John Wall kind of make some of these decisions, and John Wall is still a good point guard and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's the offense, the way they get their shots is still, pretty consistent. The one thing that we could rely on when it came to D'Antoni's offense is they're going to pass up even layups if they can get a wide open three, which made no sense whatsoever. But Steven Silas isn't like that. He's, if they get layups at the rim, they're going to get layups at the rim. They'll let other guys go in isolation and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how the Lakers respond. They'll get some rest, from that back to back that they had, so that'll be good. Hopefully, they build on the stuff that they saw. I hope
Mm-hmm.
Vogel keeps his leash tight with guys that don't show energy early on in the game, and yeah, if Anthony Davis plays, what does he look like? He's just going to come out taking a bunch of jump shots. Is he engaged on the defensive end? He's talked a lot about the Lakers' defense needing to be better. But one of the things that we've also said is you got to be part of that process too as well.
Yep.
And the Lakers did a much better job in the second half of last game. And so I'm going to be curious to see what they do in this game because Wood and even DeMarcus Cousins can hit threes. He can he does the whole pump fake to get the big man jumping and then drives by him and stuff like that. Like he's a mobile guy too. And so I'll be very interested to see how they kind of deal with this sort of modernized offense. I think more and more teams are going to try to beat the Lakers that way. They're going to say, okay, Gasol's the oldest guy on this team, probably next to LeBron. How do we? And he's, obviously he's in decline athletically. How do we attack them? Where's the weak point on this team? And I think teams are going to look at the Lakers that way. And I wouldn't be surprised if Houston targets Gasol early, assuming Gasol is the starter for this game.
I mean, I do wonder if Vogel will play Markieff a little bit more this game, regardless if Anthony Davis plays or not. But Markieff is 6'9", 6'10". He's a strong physical guy, so I wonder if they use him a little bit to kind of rough up Christian Wood a bit. But also, so there's a lot of Rockets already talking, man. Like, Wood said that he was circling this game on his calendar. And what's also funny is that John Wall said that the Rockets are looking at today's game against the Lakers as a test to see where they stand. Now,
Sure.
the Lakers have the best record in the Western Conference. The Rockets right now are number 12 in the West. So I don't know what they will learn. If they beat the Lakers today, I don't know what that means for the Rockets. I have no idea.
Sure.
But like you look at Harden, who can explode when he's got it going, right? The first three games that he played, he scored at least 30 in his first three games. One game he had a 40-point game. But his last three, I think he scored 21, and he had 15 apiece in each of his last two games. So he's a guy that's probably going to look to come in and try to get those threes up quick, draw a bunch of fouls. He's taking 3 less threes a game this season than he did last year. And that might just be a function of it's early, and maybe things will balance out. But the last couple of seasons, he shot like 12 threes a game, 13 threes a game. And so I wonder if that's a function of Silas's offense, or will it normalize over the course of the season? He'll be up above 10 3-pointers a game. But the Lakers got to take this team seriously because, one, Wall could certainly fill it up. I mean, I remember a couple years ago when they came to D.C. and Lonzo was still on the team, like it was as if I went to that game in person. It was as if John Wall took the whole Lonzo matchup personally, and they just killed the Lakers when they came to D.C. And so I wonder, what Wall will look like today. I do wonder if Harden's going to look to kind of, go for a 40-pointer or one of those 40 and 15 games or something like that he likes to do. But the Lakers got to pay attention because they could get down 15 or 20 early. And unlike the other teams where they can kind of claw their way back, James Harden is the legit superstar, and he will put his foot on your neck. And at that point, the Lakers have to make a decision. If they're down 15 or 20, do they just want to call it a night and rest LeBron and Anthony Davis if Anthony's playing? How do they want to go at that standpoint? But last year in the playoffs, the Lakers had no problems with Russell Westbrook or James Harden. Like, they threw AD on Westbrook for long stretches of the game. Harden, once they double teamed him hard and early in the shot clock, and then he basically just said he passed it and was just like, I'm gonna stand here in the corner. Like, so I wonder if they'll look to double team him again, especially if KCP and Caruso are both playing, or how they're gonna look to do that. But if I was a coach, I'd look to take Harden out early and really see if Christian Wood is really ready for the big stage. See if John Wall is really back at all-star level John Wall. But I want to see the Lakers send a message like, don't toy around. Like, Zach LaVine had 38 the other night, and he kept the Bulls in that game. Don't let Harden get hot or one of those guys get hot, and then we're in a slugfest all afternoon.
Yeah, I think probably the most annoying thing would be if the Lakers had if this was like a 5 point game all the way through the game, or like something that's like
Hmm.
single digits throughout the entire game, regardless of who's in the lead. You want to jump, kind of explode away if you get the opportunity to. So they're ninth in scoring at 114 points a game, the Rockets, but they're almost dead last in rebounds per game. They're almost dead last in assists per game, and they don't play defense. They give up 111 points a game. So that's not net ratings. It's just raw aggregate numbers. The number that steps out, that kind of stands out to me the very most, is that assist per games number. Um, Even if you had to take a guess at what you think they're doing, you'd probably guess that they're doing a little bit more isolation,
Yep.
or they're doing just about the same amount of isolation that they normally would. So it's not necessarily a bad thing when your assist numbers are low,
Hmm.
but as a team, but it's sort of something that gives you pause when you're thinking about it, because you're thinking to yourself, like, are these guys generating shots for each other, or
Right.
are they just trying to create shots for themselves? And so, like the games that I saw, that Portland game and then some of that Sacramento game, it didn't look like Harden was looking to set up his guys unless he had to. And this is one of my things that's been about like James Harden, and it's something that I've sort of talked about or thought about, and I can't quite figure out like how to describe the difference of what it is. But um, James is like a super scorer, right? Like he's an amazing scorer, a technically sound scorer. He can attack with either hand and all that sort of stuff. He's really great. But the thing with James Harden is he passes because he has to pass. He doesn't pass because he wants to pass. And I think that's a thing that's always sort of plagued him. Because he's so good at scoring, he
Hmm.
probably thinks that he probably is confident in himself that he can literally come down the score, like draw a foul or do something every single time, right? But because teams are double teaming him at the rim or they're trapping him at half court, he has to give the ball up. But the thing is that mentality kind of like, if you compare it to like a guy like Luca, right? Like they both play in a very similar style offense.
Hmm.
But the thing is that Luca will do things on the court to create opportunities for his teammates that doesn't
Right.
involve just him running to the rim every single time, right? And so when we think about guys around the league like Steph Curry, like Chris Paul, like LeBron James, who can just change the geometry of the floor to like enable their guys to be more successful, like that's something that I haven't seen Harden do. It just seems as though like Harden's looking to score, and when he's looking to score, if he sees, like if it's a basic read, like, oh, there's a guy coming to double from the corner, I need to throw the pass that way, so then that guy gets a wide open three. Like that's how I think of Harden, right? Like he doesn't. There's no complexity to the way he plays his offense. It's very straightforward. That's not a bad thing. He's good at it, right? So it's just like if it's working, it's working.
Hmm.
But that's where it can get misleading, as like it gets misleading as a fan and as a player, because you think to yourself that um, you can just keep doing this over and over again, and the defense will never adjust to the way that they defend you, and
Right.
that's why they always seem to fall short at times when it comes to the playoffs. Because good defenses will always make adjustments. So like when I look at the team this year, the question sort of becomes like, is this still that same type of team? Is it a team that creates opportunities for each other, or is it a team where everybody just kind of makes the common sense pass, and
Hmm.
if you score, you score. If you don't, you don't, right? And the thing that I want from the to see from the Lakers is that, one of the things that we mentioned in our recap pod was, our recap episode was, you know, are we going to continue to be a step behind, right? Like the Rockets offense is very similar to what they had last season. Obviously, they
Hmm.
have better personnel for specific things, but you know where these passes are going to go. If you double Harden, you know who he's passing to. If he drives and he wants to kick it out, you know it's going to go to the corners. Like, will the Lakers be on top of it? Will they, and will they be like aware of the things that they need to do? Because the same way that this game may be a barometer for the Rockets to see how they may look compared to a contender. Um, this is a nice barometer to see if the Lakers can get back in sync. This is a predictable offense. It's a predictable offensive style. You know what they're prioritizing shot wise. So you need to so you know where your rotations are. The same five guys are going to be standing in the same five spots every offensive possession, and it's not going to change. So the Lakers shouldn't have any communication issues unless there's being like pick and roll and stuff like that being run, where it's a little bit more isolated to specific guys. So I want to see the Lakers like go in with that game plan and say, look,
Hmm.
the personnel is different, this offense isn't that much more different than what we saw in the playoffs, and they saw a lot of it. So that's why I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that we get a better defensive showing tonight, especially if if Anthony Davis plays, and even if we get KCP back, that'd be great because he brings a level of energy defensively and offensively to that starting lineup that we really need. And does Frank go with Wesley Matthews and Schroeder, or Schroeder struggled a little bit at the beginning of a lot of these games recently? Like, does he test out maybe going KCP and Wes Matthews? Like, this would be a good matchup for him to try that if he wanted to. So I'll be curious to see what sort of things go on. For all we know, they may just run all the same stuff, let Gasol go, and then I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that Christian Wood doesn't obliterate us from the outside, because I know he's not shooting too well right now, but he's capable, and we know what happens when there's a capable player who has like a chip on their shoulder for some reason because they're playing the Lakers. So that's what I'm going to see. And look, if we go through another situation again where we're seeing guys hit ridiculous amounts of contested shots, then we're just gonna have to play through it, because that's been the theme these past two games. Like, Levine was hitting, he started off really hot, but he was also making some really hardcore like contested shots. So you just got to play through it and hopefully come out with a win.
Well, let's get to some of the comments that people are sending in. So I knew this one was going to come up. Sonic said that he was hoping that Cousins came back to us. And look, Cousins isn't this big rim protecting, big man, but people are already screaming that they wanted a more athletic big man than Gasol. I wanted Cousins to come back also. He's playing about 13 minutes a night, I think, for Houston. But, he's only averaging 5 points. So, unlike John Wall, who has come back and, he's putting up, numbers similar to his career averages, Cousins is averaging like 5.8 points a game. He's averaging a little over a block. He has not had a double-digit scoring game. He's only had one double-digit rebounding game. So, I know how this works. He's been very average or below average this season. He'll come out tonight and have like 10 and 10 and 2 blocks, and people are going to scream that the Lakers should have signed him. So,
right. No, I mean that's just the that's just the way it looks like their starting lineup that they run. So I don't know. I'm assuming everybody's healthy with this roster. So I'm not entirely sure who they've been starting. I'd have to go back and look at like their boxes to see who they've been starting. But I'm assuming it's going to be Hardened, Wood, Wall. I don't know. I'm not sure if they're still starting Eric Gordon at the 2, but I'm assuming the last guy is probably PJ Tucker. I think he plays the 3 or the 4 for them now. Mm-hmm. They moved him out of that center spot. So he's better in that spot. He still stands in that corner and runs that corner 3 as they run any pick and roll and stuff like that at the top of the key with like Wood and Harden or Wall and Wood. So it'll be interesting to see just sort of how this sort of works out. Wall is similar to Russ, a very prolific jump shooter, but he can hit a jump shot every now and then and stuff like that. The real danger with him is just letting him get loose in transition and letting him speed the game up. He certainly still is a very good one-man fast break, and he does sneaky stuff around screens. Like he'll fake taking a screen, all of a sudden change direction. By the time you know it, by the time you blink, he's already got the layup. And I think Alex in the chat mentioned what their starting lineup has been. And okay, that makes sense.
Wall, House, and Tucker. I mean, look, man, if they're gonna, I don't know. You think we see Tucker guarding AD at all like he did in the playoffs last year when AD obliterated him?
I don't think they're gonna put Tucker unless they're worried about like Wood having too many. So let's say AD comes back and they go. Let's say AD comes back and they go with the AD Gasol starting lineup. I wouldn't be surprised if they put Wood on AD just because of the length to bother him, and then they put Tucker on like Gasol, only because Gasol, obviously his benefit, like Tucker can box out and stuff like that. He's a big body himself. Obviously he gives up a lot of height to Gasol, but just to put a body on him, we don't really utilize Gasol the same way that like we normally would, or like in a dunker spot like Dwight. So it's a little bit easier for a guy like Tucker to manage, and then he'll probably like help off of him, like in case LeBron drives or something like that. uh, or something like that.
Let me ask. So, shout out to Mimi. Love that she's in these chats all the time, sending this stuff in. So she said Boogie's getting targeted on defense. Even when he was at All Star level, guys he would be targeted because he's not a great defensive player like an Anthony Davis. Do you think that the
Yep.
Lakers will target him, or do you think that like when Trez comes in and maybe Boogie and Trez are matched up, that Trez will try to draw him out and Trez likes to dribble, blow past guys a little bit, use his own athleticism to kind of go at Boogie, maybe draw some fouls on him.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll target him specifically, but I don't think they'll be afraid to go to that matchup. I wouldn't also be surprised if we get some, we get some chippiness between those two
Oh,
because
Trez and Cousins.
Cousins, yeah, because Cousins is a physical guy,
Yep.
and he likes to play that way, and so is Montrez. So usually when you get two guys that like to collide with each other and
Mm-hmm.
create physicality, you can get a little bit of chippiness. And if the Rockets do have this approach where they're treating it like this is a measuring stick for them as a
Mm-hmm.
team, as to whether they're a real team or not, I could see that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. Same thing for like a guy like Markeith and stuff like that. But the other thing is also, I mean, Montrez wasn't on this team last year, but like DeMarcus spent all last season with the Lakers too, like up until the very last moment where we had to waive him because we needed his roster spot. So like obviously they're competitors on the floor, but
Right.
they're friends off the court too as well. And AD is very
One of his
close
best
to
friends.
DeMarcus and stuff like
Yep.
that. Yeah, one of his best friends. So I'll be curious to see how the chippiness and stuff like that sort of works out for them as
Well,
a team. But mhm.
we have a candidate for who may go off against the Lakers tonight. Um, Ben McLemore. I mean, his purse
Oh,
41. That's utterly ridiculous. I mean, he's one of those guys that could get hot, and then all of a sudden he's got like 25 out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. He's probably he's probably a good candidate for somebody who's just going, who will just like randomly go off. Is he a clutch client still? If he is, then I wouldn't be surprised. It seems like all these clutch guys,
They go
uh,
off.
uh, they keep going off on the Lakers and stuff like that. So I mean, Wall is clutch. I know that.
Yep.
And I think the only other guy would be probably Macklemore. I think he's still clutch, but usually it's those guys that kind of go off and stuff like that. But they have like what's it called? Like they have athletes. Like Daniel House is a good player. Like he's an
Right.
athletic guy, and he's a big body and stuff like that too. So I wouldn't take this team lightly, despite their record. Um, they, they still play a very very good offense in terms of like spacing and stuff like that
Right.
too as well. So the Lakers will definitely have to lock in on the defensive end. They're not going to be able to slack off, or else this team will, like I said, they're only actually as a team they're not shooting that great as from three, but this could be the game where they just break out of their funk. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, they've only got two guys shooting over 40%, and that's Tucker and Sterling. So, but again, guys seem to find their rhythm against the Lakers. Here's a really good one, something I didn't consider. So Travis asked, "Are they going to give a ring to Boogie tonight?" And I wonder if they'll wait till they come to Staples on Tuesday. I think is when they play the Rockets again. So do you think they might give him his ring tonight?
I think they may wait till because they know that they're going to come to
Yeah,
LA. They may do it because I don't know if the Rockets are going to play like a Lakers video championship thing
that
or
true.
whatever for him, yeah, to thank him and stuff like that. So I would think that they'll probably give it when what's it called? They'll give it to him when what's it called? He comes to LA just because it's like they could do like a little presentation and stuff for him.
Hmm.
Just I'm trying to remember it. What do teams typically do? Do they give it on the road? I don't think they
I
do,
don't know.
right?
I know they usually do something like a little tribute when they come back to Staples Center.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Like I'm pretty sure that they do it when they come home. So and I'm sure they probably looked at the Lakers probably looked at the schedule and stuff like that, and they said, "Oh,
mhm.
okay. If I send him, he's gonna come play here anyways. We'll give it to him then." Because I mean, that's the only thing that would make sense to me. But it also depends on what the schedule looks like. So I don't know. Like Bradley's in Miami right now, so when is Miami
Right.
coming to LA? I don't know. We haven't seen him on the schedule yet.
And
That sort of thing. So
he's going to be out due to COVID safety protocol stuff. So even if
oh boy,
who knows what's going on with that. But now here's one that's specifically for you, man.
what is it?
Adrian Adrian Broner's dad. Vinay with no glasses. My guy's feeling frisky early. Maybe that's good luck for the Lakers, man.
I'll tell you what, Adrian, these are not real glasses. The reason why I don't wear these is because so I wear these because my brother told me that these blue light glasses help him not get headaches and stuff like that. And then I've also had people tell me that this is a whole scam and it's not real. It doesn't do anything for you. It's a placebo. So when I wear these glasses, it's actually because of that reason. I don't get headaches, but I don't want headaches, so I just wear them. And the only reason I take them off is, as you guys can see, there is glare on my thing. So I feel like I look like one of those hackers in the movies or something like that, where they have that screen where they're like the guys like typing like this and stuff like that. You see all this stuff going on. So the reason I take it off is because I feel like I look like a cartoon character at times with all the glare on my glasses or whatever. And so that's why I just took it off today. Good observation, Adrian. Maybe that is the key to the Lakers winning more. But they're winning a lot right now, so I can't really complain. Just waiting to see what sort of just waiting to see just kind of what ends up happening with the health of these guys and how they come out tonight if they come out defensively. But that COVID thing is still going on, man. Like I think they announced today that what was it? The Celtics only have like eight
players,
like the bare minimum 8 healthy players to play. Like that's legit nuts. Like I don't know what to say. Like I tweeted out the other day, but I don't know if we're going to see real versions of these teams like until the playoffs. And even then, I don't know if they're going to have enough time to get their practices in and film sessions in and stuff like that. I think teams that are really, really smart about their scouting and like synthesizing the stuff they need to synthesize in their scouting down very well, which the Lakers do very well, at least prior to going into the playoffs.
Yep.
Those are the teams that are going to succeed and the teams that are making adjustments and stuff like that. So it'll be very, very interesting to see.
So this is what I love to see, man. A confident Lakers fan. Shout out to Kenny, man. Lakers don't have to prove shit. They just got to play the lineups and see how we match up for the playoffs. Lakers taking a big picture outlook. Kings don't worry about pawns. Man, do I love a confident Lakers fan.
I mean, it's great. We love the energy. You'll always find very, very confident Laker fans. I think me and you are both pretty confident that the Lakers have a really, really good shot at repeating this year. It's just, we have so many new pieces. So for us, it's just kind of, at least for me, it's very enjoyable, like seeing the small things and saying like, okay, we know this guy's been doing this really well, but can we see him make some improvements on this side? Because it'd be nice, not only from a team perspective, but for that individual player's like development to become like a better rotational guy for the team. But I think overall, like the energy, at least on the defensive end, being like a little lackadaisical is probably the biggest like sort of bugaboo with this team. And if they come out sharp tonight, I'm sure we'll see a lot of stuff about the Lakers being an incredibly dominant team through this many games. And I think that LeBron MVP talk will continue to heat up. And I thought personally that he got robbed out of it last season because people were using analytics to promote. And it's cool. Giannis got it. I don't have any issues with that. I understand the case that they made for him. But it's just top to bottom, LeBron was playing in a much more difficult conference at the time. He was incorporating more new players to his team, integrating more new players to his team. And I just didn't think that the statistical case was enough of a reason for LeBron not to win it. But I understand why folks said what they said and when they voted Giannis. So I think this could be a season, maybe if LeBron keeps it up and he continues to do what he does and the Lakers are like a 1 or a 2 seed or even a top 3 seed in the West. And the 1-2 seed isn't like anybody that's above the Lakers doesn't have like one guy that's like way more outstanding. It could be year 18. We could see LeBron get that MVP again. I can't think of anybody else. Like, I mean, obviously like Clippers, Paul George had a nice start to his season. Steph has been really great, but they've lost some games too as well. The Nets are up and down. I don't think anybody on the Bucks is going to win MVP ever again because I think there's just voter fatigue with that. So like who stands out? Like maybe Embiid, somebody on the Sixers or something like that. But we know that Embiid's health is up and down at times during
Right.
the season and stuff like that. He's also in COVID restriction protocol and stuff like that. So LeBron stays healthy, continues to put up these numbers. Might have I don't know what the oldest MVP of all time is, but he may end up getting an MVP this season.
I think
Um,
it might be Malone, but I'm not 100% sure. And I
yeah,
mean, it's going to be interesting this season just because guys are going to be in and out, like you said, especially with the whole COVID thing. But I think also last season, if Giannis won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, I know what the analytics said, and I know that supports the reasoning on both of those awards. But to me, any player that wins both of those awards, they need to be definitively better than whoever the runner up is
right,
in those
right.
various categories. And Giannis was not definitively better than LeBron or Anthony Davis on either end of the ball. And so, as far as I'm concerned, oh, I mean, he went back to back MVPs. He's probably never that's not going to happen, especially after they kind of flamed out in the playoffs. But I just think that just based on how the season's going to play out with the COVID restrictions, we're seeing so many guys now have to sit out, even if they don't have COVID, just because of trying to trace if there is a situation and just to be healthy. Who knows who might win those awards? And
Yeah.
let me bring this question in because this is interesting and I want to get your take on it also. But Adrian Broner's dad asked, "What did we think about
Hey, Adrian, you gotta change your YouTube name, bro. We can't keep calling you this, bro. Like, what are we doing, man? We call you Adrian Broner's dad, unless you really are his dad, which I doubt you are. But yeah, just make up a different alias so we can we don't have to say your whole name. Like Alex keep laughing every time he's saying your name.
Yeah, I struggle with that, man. But like, look, he said, "What do we think about Bradley opting out from the bubble for health reasons, only to go sign in a team in Florida?" And so, look, man, um, I support any player that opted last year to opt out of the bubble. Like that's their right and that's their prerogative. Um, it's interesting that he would go sign with the Miami Heat in Florida, a very red state. Restrictions there are very much looser than other parts of the country. Certainly, it's a bit looser in Florida than in California. I don't know what his
Yeah,
thinking was, and now obviously he's setting out because he's in health and safety protocol. I don't know what his thinking was, man. Like I have no idea. That's something he has to wrestle with, not us as fans. That's his decision. He's still got a ring. He still very much helped the Lakers during the regular season. So I don't know what to make of that, guys. I don't know.
yeah. I from a COVID perspective, based on what the reason why he told us he opted out of the bubble, and I don't think he opted out of the bubble just because of his son's respiratory thing. I think he did opt out because maybe the state of everything that was going on at the time. Like
Yeah.
we've seen Kyrie not want to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie and Avery Bradley were the two guys that were supposedly, and I think Dwight too, also a little bit to some
Yep.
degree, were the two most vocal folks as it relates to, hey, we should not play the game of basketball because there's people protesting, getting shot by cops and stuff like that. And so they were very vocal about that. And Avery opted to step out and stuff like that.
Yep.
And now and so now it's a COVID thing, and the reason why he didn't show up in the bubble, he said, is because of COVID thing. But I don't think it was just, and this is just me speculating. This is not anything that he said. I think it wasn't just that. I think maybe he was overwhelmed by the stuff that was going on. Didn't feel right just playing basketball, ignoring what was going on around him. So I understand that. Now moving forward, I think because he said that he was concerned about his son's health and possibly infecting him and stuff like that, or contracting COVID and putting his family in danger, people are attached to that. But in reality, if we think about it the way that we think about it, if we think about it in terms of like what went on during the time at the time of that decision, we really didn't know if that bubble was going to be successful. We didn't know if people would have discipline. There were certainly times where people were breaking protocol and they were in jeopardy. Like day one, I forgot who the guy was, but there was a Suns player that like ordered Uber Eats or something like
Yeah.
that and broke
Stepped
the
outside there.
quarantine line, right? And so like obviously it wasn't on purpose. They didn't know these are kids. Like, I mean, I'm saying these are kids, but these are young guys, right? These are like 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-old guys that don't know. Like they've never been in a situation where they're locked down like this or in a bubble
Right.
environment. It's very unique to them. So it was very possible that bubble wouldn't work. But the NBA did a tremendous job in making it possible for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a good chance that when the playoffs come around this year, they're going to have to probably do it again because
Oh
they don't
yeah.
want to have guys miss. Um, they don't want guys to have to like miss entire playoff series because of a broken protocol or something that happened 3 weeks ago, eventually catching up to them or something like that. So as it relates to Avery Bradley, I think he probably feels a little bit more comfortable now. There's more information about COVID-19, how it affects players long term, how you can contract it, how you can avoid contracting it, all the things that are involved. So for all we know, um, like similar to like the Caruso thing, Caruso never tested positive. We never heard that he tested positive,
Right.
but because of contact tracing, he had to sit out. And so I don't think it's been announced that Avery Bradley contracted COVID. I think it's just because of contact tracing. I think because of the interaction between uh, what was this thing? Bradley Beal or somebody on Miami like had interaction with somebody else on another team on the Wizards or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it's a contact tracing issue, and that's
Right.
why he's sitting out. And so I get it. Like I don't have any issues with that. I think the reason he went to Miami is because he wanted another season. He wanted he opted out of his player option, but he also when he I think he went to Miami, he also got another 1+1. I don't think he
Right.
signed a 1 year deal with Miami. I think he signed that non-taxpayer MLE again. And
Right.
so it's obviously money is money. These guys want to get paid. The Lakers may not have offered him that second year. They probably told him, hey, um, you can opt in, but we're not agreeing to anything after that
Mm-hmm.
for now, at least. And he may not have been comfortable with that. Also, it may have been a role thing with him. The Lakers traded for Dennis Schroeder. They ended up getting Wes Matthews. By that time, we didn't know if Avery Bradley was opting in or opting out or what was going to happen. He was one of the guys who was still like deciding as to like what he wanted to do and stuff like
Right.
that. And I think the Lakers may have made an executive decision and said, look, we know that we're going to be probably starting Schroeder and KCP or Schroeder and Wes Matthews or KCP and Wes Matthews. So we don't know where we're going to get these minutes for you. We can't guarantee a starting spot for you and stuff like that. And so it could have been a role thing,
Yep.
he felt a certain way about it. And so regardless of how all that stuff sort of works out, I guess it is sort of hard to justify why he's in Miami and stuff like that. But, you know, players are going to do what's in their best interest. We never know what
Right.
happens behind the scenes in these conversations and stuff like that. And so that's just kind of the way it goes. To be honest, though, like I'm okay. Like it would have been nice to have him, but I actually want to see Caruso get his minutes because I do think Caruso is as good as he is. And the fact that Caruso is now shooting like 50%
Right. From three. Yeah.
from three, like that's like I would like Caruso. Like I would rather give that money to Caruso. If all it takes to bring back Caruso is like $6 to $8 million, like as like a 3-and-D kind of guy, I would love that. Like I would
Well,
pay him that money next season and stuff like that.
and Dennis has been better defensively than anyone thought. So
Yeah,
I don't know if there would have been any reason to bring back Avery, especially if he wanted a 1-and-1 or a 2-year deal. I don't think that made any sense. And I think when it comes to COVID, I think everybody just has to acknowledge the league started December 22nd. There was Christmas on the 24th, then there was 25th, then there was New Year's Eve, right? Like, and we're in the second week of January. There was gonna be kind of this influx or uptick in COVID cases because of the holidays, because many people around the country aren't adhering to whatever standards their individual states and cities are implementing, and so the teams have to figure it out, and this is just what it's going to be. So for Avery, I I don't know. Let me get in a couple more of these comments, Vinay.
sure.
So one, Mimi said I was right. Malone at 35. I thought Malone was the oldest, so that would be, if LeBron could add another one, that would certainly be great. Kenny's comment right here, I think, is really appropriate, and we've talked about it before. Kenny said this year's Lakers team reminds him of the '01 Lakers,
Yeah,
sleepwalking, and then they got into the playoffs and went 15-1. That's the greatest playoff team I've ever seen. I don't care what anybody else says. I remember in the year 2000, looking at their record now, the 99 2000 season, they won 67 games. That was Shaq's MVP year. The following year, they won 56, and people were like, what's wrong with the Lakers? And they got into the
yeah,
playoffs. And I think even going into the playoffs, they went on like a 10-0, or they went on some
yeah.
crazy run to end the regular season, and then they got into the playoffs. And it took Allen Iverson going nuclear in game one of the finals for them to even lose that year. So I agree. This team reminds me of that.
Yeah, no, we've said it before, the way this team is constructed, it's even the improvements that they made over the course of the season with this team, they have fixed a lot of the issues, the energy issues that they had coming off the bench, the scoring issues that they had coming off the bench. And these guys are all 1 year wiser, right? Kuzma is 1 year wiser, Caruso
Yep.
is 1 year wiser, KCP. All these guys have now a championship medal to add to their sort of like resume, and they understand what it's like. And it's not just playing for a championship in general. It's playing for a championship with like no distractions, right?
Right.
Like you're playing in an environment, which is very conceivable. This is the same thing that's going to happen. Like this season in the playoffs, if they go back to that bubble environment for the playoffs or whatever, like they know what it means to play basketball in a pure basketball environment where you have short turnarounds and you have to adjust and you have to get it together, and how important health and stuff like that is. So um, I think, you know, I think Kenny's right. I think you and I have also both mentioned that sleepwalking is a trait, is a luxury. Sleepwalking is a
Yeah.
luxury that you have when you have talent on your team and when you've already won a championship. And considering the fact that it's been a short turnaround, and considering the fact that um, like they probably haven't had appropriate time to get ready, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to see them work out the wrinkles in live time,
Yep.
in live games. And so, that's another thing that we've talked about. Like any struggles that they have, we're going to watch them do it in the regular season, even
I
with an
agree.
improved roster, because these guys still have to integrate with each other. So, is it possible that they could sleepwalk through the whole season and maybe have some dominant stretches where they win like a bunch of games, and then just turn it on in the playoffs? Probably, because if the very best player on this team, LeBron, has clearly shown that he can sleepwalk through an entire season and do exactly that when the playoffs come around. And even then, when he's in the playoffs, he doesn't like fully overexert himself until like he has to. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like these games, like the second Grizzlies game, the second Spurs game, even the Bulls game when it was tight, you see LeBron just start like kind of going into like this takeover mode and having like
Yep.
these really crazy possessions where he's just completely dominating whoever his matchup is. It's great stuff. And maybe that's like kind of the hint to all the fans that like, hey, everything's gonna be all right. Don't worry. Like we know what we're doing, and I'll step in when I need to step in. And we know for sure that LeBron is one of the smartest guys in the league, and he's one of the best at taking care of his health. And so he's going to do what he has to do to be successful. And if that means that we have to lose a couple games because we're not, as um, voracious as
Mm-hmm.
other teams and as desperate as other teams that are fighting for playoff spots, oh, that's fine. But are we healthy going into the playoffs? That's the most important thing.
I mean, frankly, that's all that matters. And I wouldn't be surprised if, hey, Kennedy, thanks for the question. I wouldn't be surprised if the league kind of does like we're going to shut down for like 2 weeks and just give
Mm-hmm.
guys a break, figure out how they're going to implement whatever next parts of the schedule or the bubble. I think they're going to give these guys a serious break in the middle of the season. Like, I could see it being maybe a week off, maybe even longer. I think that that's a legit thing. And I do think that they're going to end up playing in a bubble. Um, I don't the vaccine has been rolled out. It's being rolled out more and more, but that's been a bit fumbled. I don't think that we're going to be out of the woods by the time when the league wants to be wrapped up by what, July this season. Is that what they were saying?
Yeah, they
Is it,
want it to end on time like normal, so then they could start next season with an appropriate amount of off season. So it's just basically they're shortening this season or
right?
compromising this season. And that's why we're not seeing them cancel games. We're not seeing
Right.
them postpone games. They're like, we're just going to play it as it is. But look, the Players Association knew that. They voted for it in that regards. They knew that no matter what, the revenue is important to the league. The revenue is important to them because this doesn't just help the owners; it also helps the players too as well. To whatever influx of revenue that they get from television contracts. So it is what it is. That's just kind of how it's going to go, and we may not get good basketball. Like I have my like Twitter feed up here, and Shams just said that Ben Simmons did not travel to Atlanta and will miss Monday's game against the Hawks.
There you go.
So Like if Embiid's not playing, Simmons is not playing. Like you know what I mean? Like these guys
Mm-hmm.
are all in situations where like if Atlanta gets a win, then that's another loss for the Sixers. Does the seeding matter? All that kind of stuff. So this kind of stuff may be a little annoying for players, but and sorry, not for players, for fans. But
Yep.
this is just it's a very unique season, and that's just what we gotta deal with.
Mimi asked, could we talk about Anthony Davis's leadership? That he looks more engaged this season off the court with like new teammates. One thing that I am seeing, like, I see all the videos. I think AD has like a new car for every day of the week now since he signed that new contract extension, and I'm seeing like a lot of those videos of like teammates saying, he's pulling up in like a Rolls Royce or a Lamborghini or something, and I'm seeing
Yeah.
more of that. Um, I think Anthony Davis is I think he's extremely comfortable in Los Angeles. I think that last season, I think he was comfortable last season, but he knew like he had forced his way out of New Orleans. He knew that there was backlash from that, from everybody outside of Los Angeles. He knew the pressure coming in. The Clippers were good, and had they won and we lost, he knew the backlash that he was going to get on the heels of that. And so I think this season, I think winning a championship under the circumstances that he did, with COVID, with losing Kobe, Anthony Davis playing otherworldly. He was amazing in the playoffs and in the finals. I think that he's so confident this year. That's another reason why I think he signed that 5-year extension,
Mhm.
rather than go a 1-1 or a 2-1 or whatever. I feel like Los Angeles is the place that he wanted to be, and this team has done a really good job of kind of like with the new guys and just working together. They don't have any kind of bonding issues that maybe other franchises have had on and off the court that we've heard
Yeah.
about in various media reports. I think that starts with LeBron. I think that he's really good with bringing his teammates in and making them feel wanted. I think the front office, as well as Genie and ownership, like this team is very much like, I mean, Shaq and Kobe had their feud, but I think by and large, I think the guys got along outside of maybe Shaq and Kobe on the Shaq Kobe teams. The Showtime Lakers, even now, 35, 40 years later, Magic and Worthy and or Cooper, you see all those guys still, whether they're on TV together or they tweet or whatever. Like, I just think that Anthony Davis now as a Laker, he's comfortable, and I don't know. I don't know if that has to do with his leadership improving. I don't know if that's changed just because he's a champion, but he's comfortable. That's for daggone sure. Like, he's comfortable. What do you think, Vinay?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with you on the stance that like he doesn't take that 5-year contract unless he is comfortable. I think we're going to learn about the personality of Anthony Davis now that he's here long term.
Yep.
He is a guy who seems like he's first of all he's young, right? Like he's not 30. He's
Right.
not like obviously he has a kid and stuff like that, but we don't necessarily see him as a family man all the time. We see him as Anthony Davis, like as if he's like this young guy, young
Mm-hmm.
superstar in the league, and for all intents and purposes, he is. He's going right into his prime at 27. But say I would say that we're like kind of learning about his personality. And the other thing I'll say is this: is that his personality as a leader and his personality as a friend are two different things. Like I have a lot of friends who are we're close. We make all kinds of jokes and stuff like that. You know, you're very core friends. Everybody has them.
Mm-hmm.
Like these very core friends where you can literally say anything and everything, and it'll never be a situation where like they'll always understand where you're coming from
Right.
because of who you are and stuff like that. And I think the Lakers have a lot of guys that have that sort of personality. They have that sort of camaraderie with each other because they see, like what some of these guys go through. But those same friends of mine, when I'm in a business kind of environment, or when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking business or we're talking shop, there's like a way that they are. Everybody changes the way that they're because now you're talking about like serious things, not stuff that we can just joke around about. So like I have a friend that's a pharmacist. He works in a hospital and stuff like that. And like with this COVID stuff happening, like we joke around and stuff like that about all kinds of other stuff, sports, we're in a group chat, all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to this COVID issue specifically, he gets very serious. And I think we're learning about Anthony Davis, the person, and we're learning about Anthony Davis, like the leader of a team. And He doesn't necessarily have that same equity that like LeBron does, because LeBron's
Right.
won multiple championships. So LeBron knows how to joke around, and he knows when he needs to step up and or not step up, but like step in and
Mm-hmm.
right the ship the way that he needs to. And I think we're learning how Anthony Davis is going to go through that process. Being a leader in the NBA is not easy, especially not in this generation,
And in
because it's
and in
because
that
it's
in that market, right? It's not like you're leading in
right,
Milwaukee. You're leading in Los Angeles.
right, exactly, and it's one of those things that if you're built for it, you're built for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one way to show that you're built for it is that you're playing on the court. And it's we talked about it in our recap pod, but Anthony Davis being upset that the defense isn't very good and the communication is an issue is fair. As a defensive leader, he should be concerned with that. But we need him to be part of that process too with us
Yeah.
as well. So I would expect him to come back and be much more defensively inclined, assuming he's healthy, because I think some of it's also him trying to play himself back into shape and stuff like that through the regular season and stuff like that. But we know that when the time comes, he steps up.
Yep.
Like he's already had his first postseason run with the Lakers. He had the Laker experience of hitting a game winner. You know what I mean? And like LeBron's done what LeBron always does, and he was closing out teams at the end of some of these games, the player that he is. So, I think the coolest part about it is I thought that we would lack personality a little bit when we lost Dwight and JaVale. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool that a guy like Montrez can come in and just be himself
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make the jokes that he makes and do the things that he does. And I think that's good for camaraderie in the long run, because I think it helps keep uh, it turns teammates into like friends and brothers when you're making jokes and you can do stuff like that together. And we know Montrez is clutch, and we know
Yep.
Anthony
And
Davis is clutch, and all these
mm-hmm.
guys. So it's good. As much as we try to dissect the stuff that happens on their basketball when it comes to their work, the basketball stuff, we can never ignore the human element and lightening the mood with jokes, or roasting your buddy and teammate for showing up in a new car every single day of the week
Mm-hmm.
is funny, man. And I think we're as fans, we're just fortunate that we get to see like stuff like that, because I wouldn't share the stuff that I talk to you, like me and you talk about stuff off the air
Off.
all the
Yeah.
time, but we
Yep.
don't share it all with everybody, right?
Right.
Like, so I think it's cool that we get some insight in regards to stuff like that. So I hope it continues.
I think fans have to look no further for Anthony Davis's leadership than last season when he came to the Lakers and he held LeBron accountable on defense. Like there had been years of campaigning that LeBron doesn't play defense, and whether he did or didn't, we certainly knew LeBron was capable of being an All NBA defender whenever he
Oh, yeah.
wanted to. Like he could flip a
Yeah.
switch. Last season, in order for them to win a championship, both of those men had to be engaged offensively and defensively. And we saw one
Yeah.
of LeBron's better defensive years probably in years last year. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that was because of Anthony Davis. If Anthony Davis was the anchor of the defense, if he was going to anchor the defense, that meant that LeBron couldn't be late on rotations, that LeBron couldn't take plays off. And he didn't. So, very, 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 very few men can hold LeBron James accountable on the basketball court,
Mm-hmm.
specifically men who don't already have titles. And AD didn't have a title at
Yeah.
that point. And LeBron respected him enough to say, I'm going to bring it every night. And I said this to you one time before, Vinay. Anthony Davis's personality just reminds me of like Tracy McGrady. Like he's a bit laid back, but he will
Yeah.
bust your ass.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Snoop,
Yeah.
like in rap music, like back in the day. Snoop in his prime, very, very, very laid back as he is now. He wasn't as
Yeah.
intense as, say, maybe I'm going to date myself, but a Biggie or a Jay-Z or somebody like that back in the day.
Yeah.
But Snoop was still one of the greatest rappers of all time that would bring it whenever he needed to on the track. And so I'm not worried about Anthony Davis. Like, he's not as intense as other guys. There's a debate going
Yeah.
on in the chat right now about, he's not as intense as, say, a Kevin Garnett. He's more like a David Robinson. Maybe he is, but D-Rob, I hate that I'm going to say this, but D-Rob would bust your ass also on the court. Like, fans tend to point to, like, Kareem outplaying David Robinson and things like that, but, like, you didn't have to be as intense as Kobe. And Mimi made a great point. She said that Giannis is, as intense as Giannis is, he has not improved his game in the playoffs. And Anthony Davis
Right.
upped his game in the playoffs last year.
Right.
And we're still seeing that. He's still shooting like, 55% from the field,
Yeah.
something ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
from mid-range. So, yeah, everybody doesn't have to snarl like Kobe. and we love what Kobe meant, but
Right.
LeBron didn't LeBron didn't act the way Kobe did, and he could still be great. And I think that Anthony Davis is still great despite not being as intense as some of the other guys, some of his contemporaries.
Yeah, it's there's no cookie cutter way of being like if there was a way that you could say like okay these are the things that you have to be like a bona fide superstar or bona fide leader, then everybody would be drafting based on that, right? They draft the guy who can put up 20 and 10 but has those specific qualities and stuff like that. And it's always going to be a blend of personalities when it
Hmm.
comes to all these sort of things. Kobe, for as ferocious as he was, Shaq was very lackadaisical, very
Yes.
nonchalant in his behavior too. He loved making jokes. They would mess around all the time. But when Shaq has said this repeatedly, he also said in that very last interview that he did with Kobe that when it was time to put on your hard hat and go to work, Shaq knew what he was supposed to do. And so the personality thing never matters to me. The way that I like to from the defensive accountability standpoint, I think you're right. I think Davis keeps everybody accountable. I don't think he has to specifically point out to LeBron you're doing something wrong, but I think because LeBron knows, like LeBron, okay, I missed this rotation, so I got to fix it. But I will say that I think Anthony Davis, his like, he's like a fountain of youth for LeBron. Like he's
Yes.
watching Anthony Davis go through these sort of trials and tribulations, and I think he enjoys that. I think he
Hmm.
enjoys watching him be successful. LeBron historically, from all the Braun folk that I've ever talked to, have always said that like he genuinely like this persona that people or the anti-Braun folks try to portray of him being like this super narcissist and passive aggressive guy. Like everybody's passive aggressive to some degree sometimes if they get annoyed by something, but he genuinely wants his teammates to be successful because
Yep.
he already knows what it looks like. And if they're successful, he's going to be successful because he's trying to chase, a championship standard and stuff like that, and be the greatest player of all time. So it's, I think he draws from that. I think he sees
Hmm.
Anthony Davis go through this stuff and he like absorbs stuff. So like when Anthony Davis comes in, he's super locked in on the defensive end. I think like indirectly LeBron draws some energy from that. He doesn't need it, but he just
Right.
does. It just that's what happens, like when you're with your friends, the
Hmm.
energy that comes off of your friend circle is different, and compared to like you being at the workplace or something like that. And you want to play with people that you like, people who make you better as a player and keep you
Hmm.
motivated. And in this season, it's going to be important because there's no fans. There's no fans for LeBron to look at in the crowd and draw energy from, or for Anthony Davis, or for anybody. And that's tough, especially if you've spent 17 years of your career, you know, drawing on that energy. Like social media is great because guys like me on like your
Right.
sort of will spice up all your stuff and say, "Hey, check this out," and he may see it when he's scrolling his feed. But game to game, it's tough to get that. And so, I think Lakers could be fine. I'm not too worried about the intangible stuff. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that they start cleaning up some of the small things that they can clean up that are very easily correctable. And I think that'll happen over time. Today will be a good test against the Rockets to see if they can clean some of that stuff up.
I agree. Guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. I think it looks like because
Yeah.
there's still a lot of chatter going on in comments. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. But Nate, do you have anything you want to add before we close out?
Nope. Just looking forward to again. I'm not stressing the wins and losses.
Hmm.
Whatever happens to the Lakers in that regards, we'll be fine. And as always, appreciate everybody joining us in the chat, sharing information with us because me and Alex aren't able to stay on top of everything
Hmm.
at the time, and so we appreciate everybody sharing quotes and stuff like that you guys get from players. And as always, I hope everybody is healthy and staying safe and prosperous.
I echo those words. Guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on your notifications and like the video. And if you happen to catch us on the podcast, subscribe on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you prefer your podcast. Make sure you subscribe there as well. It's early enough today, guys, so I think we might be back for a post game. Um, so guys, someone asked in the comments, were we doing a post game? So much of that just depends on me because I'm on the East Coast, as many of you probably know already. So it's a bit later for me to get up and do those post games with Vinay. And I want to make sure I bring it, and I'm not too tired. So um,
Yes.
but it's early, so we looks like we should be able to get a post game in, guys. But we'll certainly let you know on social media. Again, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and thanks for all the information you guys provide. Like Vinay said, we can't always look at all these different screens and grab this stuff while we're on here talking. So thank you guys so much, and we will catch you later for the post game. You guys have been watching Laker Central.